The first sign something was wrong came when the Kepler station went silent. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the UES Endeavour, watching the holographic display flicker through the last transmission from humanity's farthest outpost. The message was brief, clinical, and utterly terrifying in its implications. "This is Commander Torres at Kepler Station. We've made contact with an alien vessel. They're surrendering. Immediately. They won't even look at us directly. Something's not right here. The entire crew is requesting immediate psychological evaluation. We need..." Static. Then nothing. Sarah's hands trembled as she replayed a message for the 5th time. Around her, the bridge crew worked in tense silence, their faces pale under the blue glow of their stations. They'd been traveling for 3 months to reach this distant system, following humanity's first confirmed contact with intelligent alien life. Everyone had expected negotiations, maybe even conflict. No one had expected terror. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from the communication station, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "I'm detecting multiple energy signatures ahead. Massive ones. They're all moving away from us." Sarah moved to the tactical display, her mind racing. 7 distinct ships, each the size of a small city, were accelerating away from their position at incredible speeds. The energy readings were beyond anything in human technology. These vessels could probably vaporize Earth's entire fleet without breaking stride. Yet they were fleeing. "Hail them," Sarah ordered, her voice steadier than she felt. They are not responding to any communication attempts. In fact, they're actively jamming our signals. It's like they don't want to hear us. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the mission xenobiologist, stepped forward from her station. Her usually composed demeanor had cracked, revealing the fear beneath. "Captain, I've been analyzing the energy signatures. These ships are old, ancient. The technology suggests a civilization that's been spacefaring for millennia, maybe longer. But their behavior suggests they're terrified of us," Sarah finished grimly. The main screen flickered to life, showing Kepler Station growing larger as they approached. The small research outpost looked intact, but something felt wrong. The usual bustle of activity was absent. No shuttles moving between the docking bays, no communication arrays rotating to track their approach. "Life signs?" Sarah asked. "All crew members are alive and accounted for, but they are all gathered in the central hub. No one's at their stations," Rodriguez reported. As they docked with the station, Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the recycled air. The airlock hissed open, revealing Commander Torres waiting for them. His weathered face was drawn, his eyes haunted in a way that suggested he'd seen something that fundamentally changed his understanding of the universe. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thank God you're here. We need to talk. All of us, away from any recording devices." Sarah followed him through the station's corridors, noting how empty they felt despite being fully staffed. Crew members she passed looked at her with expressions of confusion and fear, as if she was somehow different from the person who'd left Earth months ago. The central hub was packed with Kepler Station's entire complement of 4 to 7 personnel. Scientists, engineers, security officers, all of them sitting in a rough circle, their faces bearing the same shell-shocked expression as Torres. "Tell me what happened," Sarah said, taking a seat in the center of the group. Dr. Elizabeth Hawthorne, the station's chief xenobiologist, spoke first. "They came out of nowhere. A single ship, about the size of our largest cruiser. We tried to hail them, followed all first contact protocols. They responded immediately, but not how we expected." "They begged," Torres interrupted, his voice cracking. "They literally begged us not to hurt them, in perfect English. They knew our language, our culture, our history. They knew things about us that we don't even know about ourselves." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "What kind of things?" "They called us the Apex," Dr. Hawthorne continued. "They said every species in the galaxy has been preparing for our arrival since they first achieved faster-than-light travel. They've been watching us, studying us, terrified of the day we'd finally leave our solar system." "That's impossible," Sarah said, though even as she spoke, she knew she didn't believe her own words. "They showed us records," Torres said, pulling up a holographic display. Star charts, historical documents, treaties, all focus on one thing: how to survive when the humans finally venture into deep space. Captain, there's a galactic civilization out there. Hundreds of species, thousands of worlds. And they're all afraid of us. The display showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with vast networks of trade routes, communication arrays, and territorial boundaries. At the center, marked in ominous red, was a small section of space containing one unremarkable yellow star. Earth. They call it the quarantine zone, Dr. Hawthorne explained. For the past 50,000 years, no alien vessel has been permitted within 100 light-years of our solar system. Any ship that violates a boundary is destroyed by automated defense systems, not to protect us from them, but to protect them from us. Sarah stared at the map, her mind struggling to process the implications. What makes us so dangerous? We're barely a Type 1 civilization. We've only just figured out fusion power and basic space travel. That's what we asked them, Torres said. Their response was unsettling. They said that every other species in the galaxy achieved space travel through cooperation, shared knowledge, gradual development over millions of years. But humans? We clawed our way to the stars through violence, competition, and an absolute refusal to accept limitations. They called us the only species at wars with itself, Dr. Hawthorne added. Every other civilization achieved unity before achieving space travel. They couldn't understand how it managed to reach the stars while still being capable of destroying our own kind. The room fell silent as the weight of this revelation settled over them. Sarah felt a growing sense of dread, as if she was standing at the edge of an abyss that she couldn't yet see the bottom of. There's more, Torres said quietly. They want to meet with us. Officially, they are sending a delegation to negotiate what they call a coexistence protocol. They'll be here in 6 hours. Sarah nodded slowly, her mind already racing through the implications. Humanity had always dreamed of finding its place among the stars, of joining some grand galactic community. But this wasn't the welcome they'd imagined. This was a species so feared that an entire galaxy had spent millennia preparing for their arrival. And now, Sarah realized with growing horror, she was about to learn why. The alien delegation arrived exactly 6 hours later, their ship emerging from hyperspace with a grace that made human vessels look like stumbling children. Sarah watched from Kepler Station's observation deck as a crystalline vessel approached, its hull seeming to shift and flow like liquid mercury in the starlight. "They are beautiful," Dr. Vasquez whispered beside her, but Sarah could hear the tension in her voice. Beautiful, yes, but also clearly designed for speed, not combat. Every line of the ship spoke of a civilization that had chosen flight over fight, diplomacy over warfare. It was elegant in a way that human ships, with their angular armor and weapon arrays, could never be. The delegation consisted of 3 beings, each from a different species. The first to emerge from the docking tube was tall and ethereal, with translucent skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Its movements were fluid, almost hypnotic, and its large eyes held an intelligence that felt ancient beyond measure. The second was smaller, more compact, with chitinous plates covering its body and 4 arms that moved with precise coordination. Its face was insectoid, but its expression was unmistakably one of barely controlled fear. The third was the most alien of all, a being that seemed to exist partially in another dimension, its form shifting and blurring at the edges. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I am Zephyr of the Luminari," the tall being said, its voice melodious but strained. "This is Kex of the Hive Mind Collective, and Void Singer of the Ethereal Domains. We come as representatives of the Galactic Council to formally acknowledge your species' emergence into the greater cosmos." Sarah stepped forward, acutely aware of how the 3 beings flinched at her movement. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the United Aerospace Force. We're honored by your presence and eager to learn about the galactic community." "Community?" Kex repeated, its mandibles clicking in what might have been laughter or terror. "Yes, we have built a community. A careful, measured community based on mutual understanding and respect for life. We have had peace for 47,000 years. And now you're afraid we'll destroy that peace," Sarah said, not making it a question. The 3 beings exchanged glances, and Sarah caught something in their expressions that made her stomach clench. It wasn't just fear. It was recognition, as if they were seeing something in her that she couldn't see in herself. May we show you something?" Zephyr asked, its voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded, and Void Singer raised one of its shifting appendages. The air around them shimmered, and suddenly they were standing in what appeared to be a vast library, its shelves stretching impossibly high into darkness. "This is the archive of ended worlds." Void Singer's voice resonated through the space. "Here we keep the records of every species that has achieved intelligence and then destroyed itself. There are 2,847 entries." The shelves around them began to glow, each one containing countless records of civilizations that had reached for the stars only to fall back into darkness. Sarah saw holographic displays of worlds consumed by war, species that had driven themselves to extinction through violence, entire star systems left barren by conflicts that had spiraled beyond control. "Every single one," Keck said, its forearms gesturing to the endless displays, followed the same pattern. They achieved space travel while still maintaining their capacity for large-scale violence. They expanded rapidly, aggressively, bringing their conflicts with them to the stars. And then they died. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "All of them." "All of them," Zephyr confirmed, except for one species of the archive catalogs as status unknown. A species that achieved faster-than-light travel while still maintaining multiple nation-states engaged in active warfare. A species that developed weapons capable of destroying their own world while simultaneously developing the technology to leave it. A species that, by every historical precedent, should have destroyed itself within a century of achieving space travel. The library faded around them, and they were back in the station's conference room. But the weight of what they'd seen remained. Void Singer said, its form wavering with what might have been emotion. "You are the exception, the impossible species. You have done what no other intelligent life in the galaxy has ever done. You have survived your own violent nature long enough to reach the stars." "And that terrifies you," Sarah said, beginning to understand. "It should terrify you as well," Kex replied. "Do you understand what this means? Every species in the galaxy achieved peace before achieving space travel. We learned to work together, to resolve conflict through discussion and compromise. We developed technologies that were inherently cooperative. But you created weapons that could destroy worlds before you created ships that could carry you to new ones." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her scientific mind grappling with the implications. "You are saying we're evolutionary aberrants, that our development pattern is unique." "Unique, yes," Zephyr said, "but also incredibly dangerous. Your species has demonstrated something that no other intelligent life has ever shown. The ability to direct unlimited violence while maintaining the organizational capacity for complex technological development. You are, in effect, a species of predators that has learned to use tools." Sarah felt a sick understanding creeping over her. "And you think we're going to turn that violence outward, onto the galaxy?" "We don't think it," Keck said quietly. "We know it, because we've seen what happens when your species encounters obstacles. You study them, you adapt, and then you destroy them. It's what you did to every other species on your own world. It's what you do to each other. And now you're bringing that nature to the stars." The conference room fell silent except for the hum of the station's life support systems. Sarah looked around at her crew, seeing the growing horror in their faces as they began to understand what they were being told. "But we don't want to be conquerors," she said finally. "We came here seeking knowledge, seeking to join the galactic community as equals." "Yes," Void Singer said, its form solidifying slightly. "That is what makes you so dangerous. You don't see yourselves as monsters. You see yourselves as explorers, as pioneers, as the heroes of your own story. But every species that has ever destroyed itself believed the same thing until the very end." "So what do you want from us?" Sarah asked. "We want to survive," Zephyr said simply. "For 50,000 years, we have maintained a quarantine zone around your solar system, hoping that you would follow the same path as every other violent species and destroy yourself before you could threaten the galaxy. But you didn't. You survived. You grew. You learned. And now you're here. The Galactic Council has been debating what to do about your species since you first achieved nuclear weapons," Kex added. "Some wanted to destroy you immediately. Others argued for containment. A few believed you might be different, that you might be able to change. And what did the council decide? Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. They decided to give you a chance, Voidsinger said. One chance to prove that you can exist in the galaxy without destroying everything you touch. But if you fail, if you show even the slightest sign of the violence that has defined your species' entire history, they'll destroy us, Sarah finished. They'll try, Zephyr corrected. But that's what truly terrifies us, Captain Chen. We're not sure they can. The weight of Zephyr's words settled over the conference room like a suffocating blanket. Sarah stared at the 3 alien delegates, trying to process what she'd just heard. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy weren't sure they could stop humanity if they needed to. What exactly are you saying? Dr. Vasquez asked, her voice barely steady. Kex's mandibles clicked nervously. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that should be impossible. You've survived conflict that would have destroyed any other civilization. You've developed technologies through competition and warfare that we achieved through millions of years of peaceful cooperation. And you did it in a fraction of the time. But we're not that advanced, Sarah protested. Our ships are primitive compared to yours. Our weapons are basic. We haven't even colonized our own solar system properly. That's what makes it so terrifying, Voidsinger said, its form rippling with agitation. You've accomplished what you have with crude tools and brutal methods. What will you be capable of when you have access to galactic technology? When you understand the true nature of space-time manipulation, consciousness transfer, quantum entanglement communication? Zephyr moved to the observation window, its translucent form casting strange shadows in the starlight. We've been monitoring your species for your entire recorded history. We've watched you develop from primitive hunters into a spacefaring civilization. And in all that time, you've never stopped being predators. You want to know what really frightens us about humanity? Kex asked. It's not your capacity for violence. Many species have that. It's your capacity for adaptation. You don't just survive hostile environments. You thrive in them. You don't just overcome obstacles. You turn them into advantages. Sarah felt a chill as she remembered humanity's history. The ice ages that had driven other species to extinction had made humans stronger, more resourceful. The plagues that had decimated civilizations had led to medical advances. The wars that had destroyed empires had driven technological innovation. Every challenge you face has made you more dangerous, Voidsinger continued. And now you're about to face the biggest challenge in your species' history, learning to coexist with beings you could destroy. Commander Torres stepped forward, his face pale. What exactly are you proposing? The coexistence protocol, Zephyr said, turning back to face them. A set of agreements designed to allow your species to exist in the galaxy without triggering the defense mechanisms that every other civilization has developed. Defense mechanisms? Sarah asked. Captain, Keck said, its forearms gesturing to the stars beyond the window. Every species in the galaxy has spent the last 50,000 years preparing for this moment. We've developed weapons specifically designed to fight your kind. We've created alliances based on the single goal of containing human expansion. We've built our entire civilization around the assumption that one day you would leave your solar system and threaten everything we built. And yet, Voidsinger added, we're still not confident we could stop you. Dr. Vasquez pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's recent history. I don't understand. Look at our development curve. We've been moving toward greater cooperation, less violence. We've established a united Earth government, ended most large-scale conflicts, focused on exploration rather than conquest. Yes, Zephyr said sadly. That's exactly what every other species did right before they destroyed themselves. They achieved a brief period of unity, looked outward to the stars, and then encountered something that challenged their worldview. And when that happened, they reverted to their fundamental nature. You think we're going to revert, Sarah said. We think it's inevitable, Kex replied, because we've seen what happens when your species is threatened. You don't surrender. You don't compromise. You adapt, you evolve, and you destroy whatever threatens you. It's what you did to the Neanderthals. It's what you did to every other human subspecies. It's what you do to your own environment when it doesn't suit your needs. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Sarah looked around at her crew, seeing the same horrified realization dawning on all their faces. They weren't explorers or pioneers. They were an invasive species that had just broken containment. The coexistence protocol, she said finally. What does it involve? Restricted expansion, Zephyr said. You would be allowed to colonize up to 12 star systems, all of them on the galactic rim, far from established civilizations. You would have access to basic galactic technologies, but nothing that could be weaponized. And most importantly, you would accept permanent monitoring. Monitoring. Every human ship, every human colony, every human communication will be observed by Galactic Council representatives. Void Singer explained. The moment you show signs of reverting to your historical patterns of violence and expansion, the monitoring ceases and the containment protocols activate. And if we refuse? Sarah asked. Then the galaxy will treat you as they treat any other existential threat, Keck said quietly. They will attempt to destroy you before you can destroy them. Sarah felt the weight of her species' future settling on her shoulders. How long do we have to decide? The decision has already been made, Zephyr said. The Galactic Council voted 3 days ago. The coexistence protocol will be offered to your government within the week. If they accept, humanity will be allowed to exist under supervision. If they refuse, the quarantine zone will be reduced to a single-star system, Void Singer finished. Yours. And it will remain in place until your species either accepts the protocol or destroys itself. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her scientific mind still grappling with the details. What about the other human ships already in space? The colonies we've established? The research stations? They will be allowed to return to Earth, Keck said. But no human vessel will be permitted to leave your solar system until the protocol is signed. Sarah felt a surge of the very anger that the aliens feared. You're talking about imprisoning our entire species. We're talking about survival, Zephyr replied. Yours and ours. Captain, you have to understand, we don't want to be your enemies. We want to coexist. But we also want to survive, and every piece of evidence suggests that the two goals are mutually exclusive. Unless, Void Singer said, its form brightening slightly, you can prove us wrong. How? By accepting the protocol willingly, Keck said. By demonstrating that your species can choose cooperation over domination. By showing that you can overcome your fundamental nature. Sarah looked out at the stars, thinking about Earth, about the billions of humans who had no idea that their future was being decided in a small research station at the edge of known space. She thought about humanity's history, about the wars and violence and endless cycle of conflict that had marked their entire existence. But she also thought about the poetry they'd written, the art they created, the love they'd shown for each other even in the darkest times. She thought about the scientists who'd spent their lives trying to understand the universe, the doctors who'd dedicated themselves to healing, the teachers who'd worked to make the next generation better than the last. We need to contact Earth, she said finally. Our government needs to know what's at stake. They already know, Zephyr said softly. The first diplomatic contact was made 12 hours ago. Your leaders are being briefed on the situation as we speak. And their response? They are calling it an act of war, Keck said, its mandibles clicking with what might have been despair. They are demanding that all restrictions be lifted immediately, threatening to develop weapons specifically designed to fight galactic civilization. Sarah felt her heart sink. They are going to refuse the protocol. Unless someone can convince them otherwise, Void Singer said. Unless someone can make them understand that this isn't about conquest or submission, it's about survival. Sarah looked at the three aliens, seeing the fear in their eyes, the desperate hope that somehow, against all odds and all historical precedent, humanity might be different. What happens if we accept? She asked. Then for the first time in galactic history, Zephyr said, a species that achieves space travel through violence might learn to live in peace. You will be our greatest success story. And if we refuse, then you will be our greatest tragedy, Keck said quietly, because we'll be forced to destroy the only species in the galaxy that might have been able to teach us something new. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks, but it felt like an eternity. Sarah spent most of the time in her quarters, staring at the reports streaming in from the diplomatic channels. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Earth's initial response had been predictably human: defiance, anger, and a complete rejection of what they saw as an ultimatum. The United Earth government had recalled all military vessels, begun emergency weapons development programs, and started broadcasting what they called humanity's right to the stars across every communication channel. But the reports from the Galactic Council were even more concerning. Species that had maintained peaceful relations for millennia were forming military alliances specifically designed to contain human expansion. Ancient defense networks were being activated. Weapons that had been decommissioned for thousands of years were being brought back online. Captain, Dr. Vasquez called from the bridge as Earth finally came into view. "You need to see this." Sarah hurried to the main display, which showed Earth's orbital space. What she saw made her blood run cold. The usual traffic of commercial vessels, research stations, and civilian transports was gone. In their place was the largest military fleet in human history, hundreds of ships bristling with weapons, their hulls scarred from hasty retrofitting with experimental technologies. "My God," she whispered, "they are preparing for war." "It gets worse," Lieutenant Rodriguez said, his voice tight with fear. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the solar system. They are building something big." The tactical display updated to show construction sites scattered across the asteroid belt, each one surrounded by defensive platforms and patrol ships. The energy readings were off the charts, suggesting project that would have been impossible just months ago. They are reverse engineering galactic technology, Dr. Vasquez said, her face pale. Somehow, they've gotten hold of advanced designs, and they are trying to build weapons that can fight on a galactic scale. Sarah felt sick. This was exactly what the aliens had feared: humanity's incredible adaptability being turned toward violence. In just 3 weeks, her species had gone from first contact preparing for interstellar war. "Hail Fleet Command," she ordered. Admiral Zhong's face appeared on the screen, and Sarah was shocked by how much he'd aged in the short time since she'd left Earth. His usually immaculate uniform was wrinkled, his eyes were bloodshot, and his expression was that of a man who'd seen too much and slept too little. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice hoarse, "thank God you're back. We need a full briefing on enemy capabilities immediately." "Enemy capabilities?" Sarah repeated. "Admiral, they're not our enemies. They are trying to prevent a war. They are trying to imprison our entire species," Zhong snapped. "They've made it clear that they see us as a threat to be contained rather than a civilization to be respected. That's an act of war in my book." "Sir, with respect, you don't understand the situation. These beings aren't conquerors, they're survivors. They've seen what happens when violent species reach the stars, and they are terrified that we'll follow the same path." "Of course they are terrified," Zhong said, and Sarah caught a glimpse of something savage in his expression. "They should be. We've gone from primitive hunters to a spacefaring civilization in less than 100,000 years. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have wiped out any other species. And now they want us to pretend we're not what we are." "What we are doesn't have to be what we become," Sarah said desperately. "Admiral, I've seen the records. Every violent species that's ever reached the stars has destroyed itself within a century. Every single one. The only reason the galaxy is peaceful is because the violent species don't survive long enough to threaten anyone else." "Then we'll be the first," Zhong said with frightening certainty. "We'll be the first violent species to not only survive but thrive. And if that terrifies them, then maybe they are right to be afraid." The connection ended, leaving Sarah staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew worked in tense silence, their faces reflecting the same horror she felt. In trying to prevent humanity from becoming monsters, the galactic community had awakened something that might be far worse than anything they'd feared. "Captain," Rodriguez said quietly, "I'm receiving a priority transmission from the surface. It's marked for your eyes only." Sarah took the message in her quarters, recognizing the encryption codes of the United Earth government's highest levels. The face that appeared on her screen was that of Secretary General Maria Santos, the woman who'd sent her on this mission months ago. "Sarah," Santos said, her voice heavy with exhaustion and something that might have been regret, "I need you to understand something. What you're seeing, what we're doing, it's not what I wanted. But my hand has been forced." "By whom?" "By the evidence you brought back," Santos said. Do you realize what you've given us? Proof that there's an entire galactic civilization out there, one that's been watching us for millennia, one that's been actively preventing us from expanding beyond our solar system. They've been controlling our development, limiting our growth, treating us like animals in a zoo. They were protecting us, Sarah said, protecting us from ourselves. Were they? Santos asked. Or were they protecting themselves from us? Sarah, I've seen the full diplomatic communications. They are not offering us a chance to join their civilization. They are offering us a chance to exist as a client species, forever supervised, forever limited, forever less than what we could become. Sarah felt a chill as she recognized the logic. It was seductive, appealing to every human instinct for independence and self-determination. But it was also exactly the kind of thinking that had led every other violent species to destroy itself. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "I want you to deliver a message to the Galactic Council," Santos said. "Tell them that humanity rejects their protocol. Tell them that we will not be contained, supervised, or limited. Tell them that if they want to coexist with us, it will be as equals, not as prisoners. And if they refuse..." Santos's expression hardened. "Then tell them that they are about to learn why every other species in the galaxy has spent 50,000 years preparing for our arrival. Tell them that their fears about humanity weren't unfounded. They were insufficient." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with the weight of her species' future. She looked out at Earth, seeing the orbital defense platforms and military vessels, the construction sites and weapons arrays. Humanity was preparing for war with a determination and efficiency that would have impressed their ancestors. But she also saw the blue marble of her homeworld, the planet that had given birth to Shakespeare and Einstein, to Beethoven and Curie, to billions of people who had never wanted to be anyone's enemy. She thought about the children playing in parks, the lovers walking hand in hand, the teachers and doctors and artists who represented the best of what humanity could be. "Computer," she said finally, "open a channel to the Galactic Council." The response was immediate. Zephyr's luminous form appeared on her screen, its expression one of desperate hope. "Captain Chen," it said, "please tell me you bring good news." Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would determine whether humanity joined the galactic community or destroyed it. "I bring humanity's answer," she said, "and I'm afraid you're not going to like it." The Galactic Council convened an emergency session within hours of Sarah's transmission. She stood in the center of the vast chamber, surrounded by representatives from hundreds of species, all of them looking at her with expressions ranging from fear to curiosity to barely contained hostility. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, a sphere of crystalline material that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Delegates attended both physically and through various forms of energy projection, their forms creating a kaleidoscope of alien intelligence that should have been inspiring. Instead, it felt like standing before a tribunal. "Captain Chen," the council speaker said, its voice harmonizing across multiple frequencies. "You come before us at a moment of great crisis. Your species has rejected the coexistence protocol and is actively preparing for war. The galaxy has not seen such a threat in 50,000 years. With respect," Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "my species has seen such a threat our entire existence. We've lived with a constant possibility of extinction, of war, of violence. What you call a crisis, we call Tuesday. A ripple of something, fear, perhaps, or recognition, passed through the assembled delegates. Sarah could see it in their faces, the dawning realization that they were dealing with something they'd never encountered before, a species that had been shaped by constant conflict and had not only survived but thrived. "You speak of your violent nature as if it were a strength," Keck said, its mandibles clicking with agitation. "Do you not understand that this is exactly what we fear? Every species that has glorified violence has destroyed itself. And every species that has achieved peace has done so by conquering their violent nature," Sarah replied. "But what if violence isn't something to be conquered? What if it's something to be controlled, directed, channeled into something productive?" "Impossible," Void Singer said, its form wavering with distress. "Violence is antithetical to civilization. It destroys, it doesn't create." "Does it?" Sarah asked. "Human violence drove us to develop medicine. We needed to heal the wounds we inflicted. It drove us to develop technology. We needed better tools to survive. It drove us to explore. We needed new places to go when we'd exhausted the old ones. Violence didn't destroy human civilization. It forged it. And now you want to forge the galaxy in the same image, Zephyr said sadly. You want to spread your violence to the stars. No, Sarah said, and for the first time since entering the chamber, she smiled. We want to spread our strength to the stars. And there's a difference. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared showing Earth's recent history. Not the wars and conflict that the aliens had focused on, but the recoveries, the rebuilding after disasters, the medical advances after plagues, the technological leaps after periods of intense competition. You've been watching us a millennia, she said, but you've been watching the wrong things. You've seen our capacity for violence, but you've missed our capacity for resilience. You've seen our ability to destroy, but you've missed our ability to create from destruction. Every species create from destruction, the council speaker said. That is the nature of existence. But no species has ever maintained the capacity for total destruction while building interstellar civilization. Exactly, Sarah said. And that's what makes us unique. We're not just another violent species that's going to destroy itself. We're a violent species that's learned to use violence as a tool for creation rather than destruction. You're talking about harnessing chaos, Keck said, its forearms gesturing in what might have been disbelief. It's impossible. Chaos destroys order. It cannot be controlled. Can't it? Sarah asked. Look at our history again. Every time we face extinction, we've adapted. Every time we face an impossible challenge, we've found a way through it. We survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, pandemics, and wars that should have ended our species. And each time, we've emerged stronger. She brought up another display, this one showing humanity's recent technological development. In the 3 weeks since first contact, we've reverse-engineered technology that should have taken centuries to understand. We've developed new weapons, new defenses, new methods of space travel. We've done in weeks what most species take millennia to accomplish. Through violence, Void Singer said. Through competition and conflict. Through necessity, Sarah corrected. Through the same drive that got us to the stars in the first place. The drive to survive, to grow, to become more than we were. That's not violence, that's evolution. The chamber fell silent, and Sarah could feel the weight of hundreds of alien minds grappling with concepts that challenged their fundamental understanding of civilization. She pressed on, knowing this might be her only chance to prevent a war that could destroy everything. You want to know what really makes humans different? She asked. It's not our capacity for violence. It's our capacity for hope. Every other species you've catalogued gave up when they faced extinction. They turned their weapons on themselves and ended their civilizations. But humans? We've faced extinction dozens of times, and we've never given up. We've never stopped believing that we could find a way through. And if you're wrong, Zephyr asked quietly, if your nature inevitably leads to destruction, if giving you access to galactic civilization results in the end of everything we built. Sarah looked around the chamber, seeing the fear in every face, the desperate hope warring with absolute terror. These beings had built something beautiful, something lasting, something that had brought peace to an entire galaxy. And now they were being asked to risk it all on the slim chance that humanity might be different. Then we'll face that extinction together, she said finally, because if we're going to destroy ourselves, we'll do it honestly, as who we are, not as prisoners pretending to be something we're not. The silence stretched for long moments before the council speaker finally responded. You ask us to bet the existence of galactic civilization on your species' ability to control its own nature. No, Sarah said. I ask you to bet on our ability to evolve beyond our nature, to become something new, something that's never existed before, a species that maintains the strength that comes from conflict while building the wisdom that comes from cooperation. And if you fail, then you'll have a distinction of being destroyed by the most interesting species in the galaxy, Sarah said with a grim smile. But if we succeed, you'll have a privilege of being the first galactic civilization to truly grow beyond its origins. The council speaker's form shimmered as it consulted with delegates across the chamber. Sarah could see the debate raging in their expressions, the fundamental question of whether potential growth was worth existential risk. Finally, the speaker turned back to her. Captain Chen, we offer you a modified protocol. Your species will be granted access to galactic civilization, but under strict monitoring. Any sign of the destructive patterns that have characterized your history will result in immediate containment. And if we refuse, then the galaxy will treat you as what you are, an existential threat to be eliminated. Sarah felt the weight of the moment, the terrible responsibility of speaking for her entire species. She thought about Admiral Zhong and his fleet, about Secretary General Santos and a defiant message, about the billions of humans who had no idea their fate was being decided in a chamber of crystalline light. I accept, she said, on one condition. You are hardly in a position to make demands, Keck said, its mandibles clicking with irritation. I'm in a position to make a promise, Sarah replied. Humanity will accept your monitoring, your oversight, your restrictions. But in return, we want a chance to prove that we can contribute something positive to galactic civilization. We want to be partners, not prisoners. What do you propose? Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that her next word would shape the future of two civilizations. A trial period. 10 years. During that time, humans will work alongside galactic species on projects of mutual benefit. We'll contribute our unique perspective, our problem-solving abilities, our capacity for innovation under pressure. And if, at the end of 10 years, we've proven that we can be constructive rather than destructive, then we'll be granted full membership in the galactic community. And if you fail, then we'll accept whatever fate you deem appropriate, Sarah said. But we'll have failed honestly, as ourselves, not as shadows of what we might have been. The council speaker conferred with the other delegates for what felt like hours. Sarah watched the debate play out across hundreds of alien faces, seeing the fear and hope warring in their expressions. Finally, the speaker turned back to her. Captain Chen, the Galactic Council accepts your proposal. Your species will be granted provisional membership in galactic civilization, subject to the terms you've outlined. But understand, this is not just a test of your species' ability to control its violent nature. It's a test of our ability to coexist with beings who might be fundamentally different from everything we've known. We understand, Sarah said, and we won't disappoint you. As she left the chamber, Sarah felt the weight of the future settling on her shoulders. Humanity had been given a chance, not the chance they'd wanted, but the chance they'd needed. Now it was up to them to prove that strength and wisdom could coexist, that violence and creation could be partners rather than enemies. The universe's strongest species was about to learn whether strength alone was enough to survive among the stars. And for the first time in galactic history, no one, not even the humans themselves, knew what the answer would be. Looking back at her through the observation deck of the transport carrying her home, Sarah smiled. Her species had always been at their best when facing impossible odds. Now they had the biggest challenge in their history, learning to be strong enough to be gentle, powerful enough to be peaceful, and human enough to be worthy of the stars. The real test was just beginning.